There we go. What's up, Chris? We
All
are
right.
live
How's
today.
it going, Jay? Let's go. How exciting. How exciting. So for anyone watching back, this is the On the Rocks podcast, our podcast where we talk about accounting and accounting adjacent stuff, mostly as it relates to e-commerce, because that's what Jay and I both love. But not only that, I'm Chris Skino, and I'm here with my co-host, Jay Kimmelman. Last week, we talked about burnout, about why it sucks, about what it is, about where it comes from, and what you can do to avoid it. Today, it's March 15th. That's the first big tax deadline of the year. So we're going to talk about a topic that's extremely relevant, tax. But not just talking tax about tax and its impacts, but the overall tax experience. Let's call it going to the tax doctor. But before we do that, before we get to that, what happened this week, Jay? Or what are you drinking? Let's start right here. What are you drinking today?
Let's start there. I am drinking Bullet and Coke. So I went back to the
Bullet and
Bullet.
Coke.
Yeah.
Back to the Bullet. Today, this past week, I got. I'm a member of a Get Some Beer at Your House club, and they came. The beers at my house came. So today I'm drinking Jack Abbey's Smoke and Dagger, which is a smoked black lager. Two of them. I hope it's good. It's kind of my kind of beer, so we'll find out. Before I drink it, Jay, what happened this week? I know you got some stories that we need to hear about. You were in Phoenix,
Yes.
and tell me more.
Yeah, so it was a great week in Phoenix last week, and it culminated on Monday. I got home at like midnight on Monday evening, but I spent the weekend at Phoenix Raceway, which is,
Yep.
it's become my happy place. If you know me, you know I am a NASCAR fan, and I am all about the NASCAR experience. And the racing was great. It was a great weekend for racing, but I had some I would call it backstage or whatever. I had infield passes. And part of the package I got a garage tour. And on this garage tour, I got to be, I was talking with team members. I got a couple selfies with some team members. I threw some comments at some drivers, and I made a comment to Bubba Wallace, and he never turned. I mean, this was like him. Got the thumbs up from him, got the picture of it, and shared it with Sandy on our team, who happens to be a Bubba Wallace fan.
I love it.
Later that day, I was at the media center. I caught some drivers going by, got some selfies with my favorite driver, and I'm like waiting around because I was waiting for Denny Hamlin, who won the pole, and he snuck out the back door. He avoided the fans and went out the back door because one of my other buddies, Roger, he is Denny's number one fan, if you know what I mean. So I was going to ask him to say a few words to my buddy Roger, but that didn't happen. So thinking about it, I was back on Sunday, and I got there early. I was like one of the first 5-10 people there, and I had a whole fence. I had a whole 8-foot fence length to myself. And over the next 3.5 hours, I was talking with some of my closest friends that I made there. And I was between two special needs people. And,
Nice.
It was a great conversations we had over that last 3 hours waiting for this. And, the one young lady that was on my left was a super fan. She had like 100 and something autographs from Dale Jr. So, it's like you're sitting there and everybody's walking by saying hello to her. And it's amazing watching her interact. And on the other side was this young man. He was in a wheelchair, a motorized wheelchair. His name was Timmy. And I don't know how old he was, but he knew the answer to every question I was throwing at him, and even things I didn't know.
Wow.
And, he was wearing his Hendrick Cars hat. He had his helmet that he wanted the drivers to sign. And he was waiting for his favorite driver to come by and sign and meet his favorite driver. So,
Yeah.
and he kept saying to me, I hope you get to see Alex Bowman. I hope you get to get that selfie with Alex Bowman. And I did. I got 2 selfies with Alex Bowman.
Oh, that's awesome.
One, you only saw that much of my face because it was so bright out there. You couldn't see the screen to see what you were taking a picture of.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, but I did make up for it the next day. But I did get a selfie with the champ, Ryan Blaney. So I
Nice.
felt very accomplished. Also got a selfie with Joey Logano, which is Cassandra's favorite driver, another member of our team.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it worked out really well. I had a great time, had a lot of interaction. Denny did finally come by, and we had a little chat. He was really personable with the fans. I won't tell my buddy Roger that because I took a picture of his merch trailer, and I said, "What should I get? What do you want?" He goes, "Buy one of everything. We're gonna burn it." So yeah, it was it was good. It was a great time, and the racing was awesome. They had like 2,000 green lap passes, and it was like the second most since this new car came out. I mean, I didn't think it was that much, but I mean the racing was really, really good. And
no, that's great.
I filmed a little TikTok sequence there, one of those trending things, and
Sure.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm waiting for the burn. You can't hear me because I'm there at the track, and I said, it's race day. You got to stay for the burnout. And of course, my driver with 4 laps to go blew out a tire and wrecked his car. So yeah, he had a 4-second lead and took himself out. So, and that was on Saturday. It was Justin Allgaier. So, but yeah, had a great time, and ended up the week, getting the last day of work in Phoenix and coming home. And it's been a long, long week. This has been, this tax deadline week has been really, really long. So,
well, yeah,
glad to be here with you. Talk about. Cheers.
Yeah, right. Cheers to that for sure. That is the second thing that I wanted to talk about. It's the 3/15 deadline. It's the first big one. Forgive me for not knowing any better. Like, who are the people who have to file today?
We have the pass-throughs that have to file today. The 1065s and the 1120Ss. The partnerships.
All right.
And the S-corps.
All right. So that's a lot of different people, and especially in small business, that's a whole lot of different people. So a big tax filing deadline.
Yes.
And it's obviously here today. So so hopefully everyone either you got that business return filed, or you kicked off your extension timely, and you're not waiting around to mess around with it today. Being extended, not that big a deal. But I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that later on here. And
I will say, I mean, this is ultimately culminating my day here talking with you and to our fans out on the tube here. But, my day really culminated at the post office sending out, I mean, even though we are e-filers, we still have paper extensions we got to send in. So I ended up going to the post office today to get those out. So, it's always like a ritual on that last day. Getting out there.
There you go. Get them out, be done with it, maybe have some pizza or something tonight. That sounds like a winning plan.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to leave that up to the fam because, like you reminded me yesterday was Pie Day, and I did make a couple pizzas last night, and I thought I'd have some left over. My family went out to dinner, and they got home about 10 o'clock, and my daughter, she polished off my pizza last night. She's like, Dad, this is really good. I'm like, okay, cool.
You're welcome. Also, I was planning on that for tomorrow. That's funny.
Yeah.
Too funny.
It was awesome.
Obviously, there's been all kinds of different news, right? And most of the following that I keep are talking about tax related stuff. But I also have heard a lot about the potential TikTok ban. It's out of here. What do we know about this?
Oh yes. All about that TikTok ban. And sorry, I wasn't following our comments. Christy threw out there that she loves Bubba. So throwing some more Bubba love out there. Way to go, number 23. So
way to go.
Yes. I don't know if the Senate has taken that up. They might be waiting to take that up until after they take up the tax bill. So who knows what we're going to get there. But, I've been saying, what has it been, a year now? or it's been more than a year they've been talking about banning TikTok. And, I really don't think this is about national security. I think this it's all about the money, and who is losing out on the advertising dollars right now? The users have left Meta. I mean, they're still on Instagram, but they're over on the TikTok. And that's where the money's going, and Zuckerberg's like, hey, I'm giving you this donation. You get me my money back. And that's what I truly think it's about. I really think it's all about the advertising dollars and the lost revenue that Zuckerberg and Facebook and Instagram are feeling right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I think. Well, do you think they're the big one that's losing out here because they compete so clearly with TikTok almost directly? Like I don't know if it's. I mean, I don't know. I haven't paid enough attention to it directly. I know that for a long time, the United States has been like very. I'm not sure what the right word is. Distrustful of China.
Yeah.
In my audit days, I worked with a company that was a Chinese sub, and so like you could see, and especially if you were following along with the news at the time, like you knew that there is, for whatever reason, there's a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment around, and I don't know where that rhetoric really comes from because I don't really understand it personally, but
right.
There's a lot of it, and there's a lot of concern that information and data and that kind of stuff is going to be stolen or is currently being stolen or is being utilized in some way to manipulate the public and all of that. My biggest thought on that is that isn't that exactly what Facebook and Instagram are doing too?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I don't feel like we're losing that exposure by migrating people from one app to another app. Like you're going to still have the same risks.
I fully believe you in what you're saying there, and I think what the government is looking at, because TikTok it's like 20% owned by the government. That
China,
that they are actually pushing out the propaganda themselves, as opposed to Meta that is taking advertising revenue from other bad actors to do it. So it's all over the place, and as a user of TikTok, Instagram, I'm not watching political stuff on there. I'm watching NASCAR stuff. I'm watching pizza stuff. I mean, I don't care about that stuff. If I want that, I get the real news. Now, the younger generation, my daughter, she is on there, and I don't know what the heck she's watching, but she can decipher a lot of that stuff because she's got a good head on her shoulders. But there are many adults that can't decipher that stuff. So honestly, I do get it, but you got to look at all of the different sources.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. I don't know. I think it's.
We'll get to that question later.
For sure. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. So so I'm really interested to see what happens here because it looked like a pretty overwhelming yes vote to ban it from the House, even though there was a late push not to. Both of our political or presidential candidates are on the line here. Trump has reversed his stance. He's like, no, we need to keep it, and Biden's like, I'm on the TikTok, so I'm using it, but I will sign a bill if it comes through my desk. So, all right, what are we doing? I mean, we're all over the place, so let's figure that out.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of conversation too about that. Really, the end result is just that it's going to sell to a U.S.-based entity too. So it's really just again, kind of feels like a reallocation of money.
And our former Treasury Secretary, Stephen Mnuchin, is putting a group together to buy it. And I did hear that it's it's going to be difficult to actually sell the app because it's the same app that's being used globally. And if they were to strip out just the US and sell it to another company, the algorithm would change and it's not going to work like it was working. So it's not going to make the money that it was making before. So, we got to see.
Yeah, business deals like that, and especially like breakups or mergers of gigantic companies have ramifications that you don't always think about in the moments that you're like, oh, this would be a great idea. Let's just do this real fast.
Yeah.
Because the impacts can be like very, very far reaching.
Yeah. They've already complied with one request by the U.S. to store the data in the U.S. So they are on servers in Texas.
All right.
So
down the street.
Right down the street. You could go check out your data anytime you want. But banning is not an American thing to do. That's not what we do. So
not typically.
Let's just see what happens.
It is a lot of. It is really interesting to like, not to get too political, but like it does seem to happen where you want a lot of government intervention in one space and then you don't in other spaces, and it's like, wait, how are we reconciling this?
Right.
Because sometimes you get inconsistencies in the things that certain political actors have interest in. So who knows how that will go? Hopefully by this time next week, maybe we will know at least what's tentatively going to happen. But maybe we'll know even more importantly what's going on with the tax update, because we don't right now.
Absolutely no movement. Yeah.
No movement.
You would think that would take precedence over banning a social media app, but we'll see.
You would think that government revenue from one source would typically be one of the biggest and most important things out there, but
exactly.
Who knows? I guess again we'll find out eventually. Maybe they'll just punt it to forever, and we'll worry about it in 2025. But I guess
we're gonna have to. We're gonna have to start worrying about tax law, because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, not to jump in at tax already, but the Tax Cuts and Job Act, the individual parts of it were set to revert back to pre-2018 version of itself, I think, in 2025 or 2026.
I think so too. That's my understanding too.
Yeah, so I really would have thought that would have been addressed before now.
You would think that, but I guess we will. I guess we'll find out on that one too. I guess we will. So that what other news? What else is out there? What else is going on this week?
Other news, I do not know, because I was buried in my notebook this week. Literally working on tax and working on some other client deliverables this week, which I'm almost to the point where I'm getting those off my plate. I'm getting really, really happy. We're going to be moving on to some other things.
That'll be exciting. I can't wait to see what you get next once we get that done.
I know.
And it is the 15th always is your like typical closed delivery deadline. So it's been a busy week for me too. But again, all the stuff that I've been watching and seeing, it's all related to taxes anyway, because it is the week of 3/15. So everybody's talking about their last minute client experiences and everything else that's going along with that. So with that, I think that's the perfect time to transition to our main topic today. So I'm going to provide some background. Jay, this concept came from you, so if you want to like provide the background, that's great.
But, go for it.
But all right. So Jay and I were talking about this before we started today, and Jay had just taken a visit to the doctor, and what we realized is going to the doctor kind of sucks. You have to fill out forms in advance. Regardless of whether or not you do that, like then the receptionist like asks you to fill out those same exact forms. If you're lucky, you don't have to answer the same questions for the third time when you talk to the medical assistant or somebody once you actually go back to see the doctor. And maybe you don't even see the doctor, right? Maybe you would just see the doctor's assistant and they're like, all right, good, get out of here. and then you leave and you're not really sure what's going on. You don't know what the bill's going to be. Like a couple months later, you get a notice that you owed $150 for your visit, where you didn't know what to expect. That happened to me, so I understand. Like it's really really difficult to know what to expect, who you'll be connecting to, and what the price is going to be when you leave, right? So there's this inconsistency around the understanding of the deliverable that you have, and Jay, as you were thinking about this, and as we were looking through like these different, this different situation, right? Like sadly, that same type of thing happens with getting your taxes filed, right? You feel the same way. You get asked for the same thing several times. You talk to different people on the accounting team. You may never know where you stand. You don't know if your extension's been filed for one reason or the other. And so we thought that this would be a extremely relevant time to talk about like what we can do around that and how we can fix it, because that customer experience, if that's the experience that a customer's getting, like, it's bad, and nobody wants to deal with that, and it makes doing your taxes or getting your taxes done like that much more of a pain in the ass. And so I don't know exactly where to start there, but I do think like the best place to start is with the like client experience. Like, what is it now, and what would we want it to be?
Yeah. So going back to some of that context, I walked in and she says, "Can I get your driver's license and insurance card?" I'm like, "I've already uploaded that." She says, "Yeah, they don't connect." It's like, okay, then don't ask for it. So it's like, having so many years of tax prep experience and sending out organizers and questionnaires year after year after year, you learn a lot. And so it was really interesting, because me at the Digital CPA, we went from I think we were using Pro Series, and I made the leap up to CCH Access. And I'm like, you know what? Right. We bought into this tax package. Let's use it. And you you send out the organizer from it, and it was static. It was like 40 something pages of a PDF when you send it out. Clients are like, why am I doing this? I might as well just go on TurboTax and do my tax return. And it's like, that is not the experience we want. And then one of the things I was looking at when I teased this up was, okay, do you use a standard organizer, or do you have a custom organizer that it's set up for your existing clients, or do you have one for your new clients and your existing clients? And how do you go about it? Do you use pre-populated organizers that are coming out of your tax software? So, we're working through that with our partner and getting all that done. But, how do you know what to submit? How do you know what data you got? And, for the most part, after you've been doing these year after year, you just got to know the changes. Did you move, change job, new child, new house, anything like that?
Right.
And that's what we got to find out. So, now that we're past March 15th, now is when we're going to start getting into the nitty gritty with the 1040s and these organizers. Yeah. And, I saw a request yesterday. It's like, I need to book a call to help do my organizer. It's like, okay, is it to the point where we actually have to do that? And if it is...
Because like you just said, right? Like, the things that you need to know are just like basic changes. If you need to schedule a phone call to go through basic changes,
right?
Like that's kind of a lot. So so it'd be interesting to know like what's causing that confusion or that uncertainty.
Exactly. And then we step back, and it's like we had a couple of our business clients come back, and it's like, well, we have these changes that we have to make. Well, you completed the organizer. Why didn't you put them on there?
Yeah. And that's the whole point of asking those questions too.
Right.
And so I do think like that communication too can so often help to alleviate some of those problems that you run into
Yeah,
with filling out forms twice um, or feeling like you're not being heard or listened to or whatever it might be.
for sure.
And so I think like, and I don't know this, and I don't really know a lot about tax organizers. Unfortunately, I don't have to fill out one of my own. I do them myself, um, and don't have that much complication, right, with my own tax return. And so it's interesting that like, do the organizers need better instructions? Do they need a little chat bot to go along with them? Like, what's the way that we make this process easy?
Yeah, I think that we've been working on that, myself and my man Lou, and he's been trying to coach on that and drive it to the point where it needs to go. And it's like, why are we asking that question? It's like, why is the existing client organizer now 3 pages longer than the new client organizer? It's like, we don't need all of that. So, it's getting through that and pushing through that minutia. And
Yeah.
And so what we truly want to do is review it, and as we're going through it this year, get that feedback from our clients and figure out where are we going right, where are we going wrong, and modify it. And see,
Right.
I look at tax season as 2 distinct seasons. We get through April 15th, and it's kind of like the all-star break. You get there, you're done, and or it's it's the end of the regular season and we're going into playoffs for extension season. But I like to do a post-mortem after 4/15 and see what worked and what didn't work, and start making changes in those processes during extension season and see what's actually working and what isn't, so we can do testing during that time, so when we come back around to December and January, we could be putting those processes into place that we know worked, and move towards that new process that's going to work and give us more efficiency next year.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to do. Can I ask you a question about it?
Please, yeah.
Who are you having that debrief with? Are you doing that internally, or is there a select set of customers where you're like, I want to hear how you felt about this, or how's that process work?
Ordinarily, we do hear how the process goes with the clients, because they let us know how things go. And I stepped into this last year, and last year was a complete rebuilding year for tax, and we added some structure into it and made it work a lot better than it was. And there's always room for improvement when it comes to making things more efficient, automating, and capturing data that we don't have to do repeatedly. And that is some of the things that we're trying to do. And then, building a better cadence of communication is always difficult because it's hit or miss. Some clients are pinging you crazily every day. Some clients don't ping you at all and don't respond at all. And, you'll send them their return under 8879. They'll give it a look. They sign it. You don't even know they're there. So it's very different. And the way when we're dealing with people and their money, they're very different in how they act and how they react and what is important to them. So we have to have very many different communication styles and be able to fit all of them.
That's exactly what I was going to ask, actually. Are there tools that exist that can help to mitigate that, right? When people are asking a lot of questions, that means that, at least in my mind, that means they don't have the information that they want.
Right.
And so is there some tool that exists to provide that information, or is that just not a thing that's there yet? Or are these people going to ignore that tool regardless? Or what do you think about that?
Some will ignore it. And using different tools over the last few years, like I think my last year with the digital CPA, we used, I can't remember what it was called. Tax Caddy. It was Tax Caddy. And it had an app and you could chat in it. I think that was okay. we're using TaxDome now, and there are a lot of back and forths in there, but a lot of it seems to not get responded to. And, especially like right now at the deadlines, we're having to send lots of messages to get that. Yeah. And, so I'd love to hear what other firms are dealing with at deadlines. Are you having to chase down clients to review and sign their documents so you can file their returns? Historically, for years, it's always been right off. I mean, there have been years I was still pinging people at 9:00 at night on the 15th
to try to get whatever a signature page or whatever.
Yeah. And that doesn't matter if it's March, April, September, or October. And that October date's a little more stressful because that is the drop dead date. But although it hasn't been the last couple of years, because here in Florida we've had hurricanes during that period, so we've been extended. So it has drug on.
Yeah, are there questions that you typically get? Are there people that ask the same types of things? That's what I've been seeing a lot about. Right? Is I saw a lot of conversation this week about S corp status.
Yeah.
And when you should be an S corp. I think there was a well circulated communication from just someone who has a lot of followers that was probably had a lot of inaccuracy in it. And
let me guess. They probably said if you have an LLC, you probably should be an S corp just so you don't have to pay self-employment tax. And and you can't just look at it as a blanket statement. You have to look at that at the total tax package, because if you're running a business and you have a full-time job, and so you're making, let's say you're making $110,000 a year at your daytime job, and you're running an e-com store as a sole proprietorship. So you have $110,000, and you have payroll coming out of that, and you're not quite at the threshold for the FICA limit, but you've paid most of it that way. So, Lou's throwing out here 15.3%, and that's self-employment tax. But if you're already paying most of it through your salary, you don't need to be an S corp for that. Because you're only going to pay the portion between the ceiling and the amount you paid. So, it doesn't really make a huge difference there. You can't just look at this single rule. You have to look at the total tax situation of the taxpayer and their family and see how it fits.
Yeah. And so that's why it's so important to have an effective organizer or an effective information gathering tool,
right,
so that you can see the full picture of the situation rather than being partially blind. Obviously, I've seen a lot of conversation too about I got the don't forget about this new business I opened this year, and
right,
it's at the last minute, right? There's
right. A lot of times
about something like that.
A lot of times that is an afterthought, and for the most part, I would say the majority of our tax clients, we are doing their accounting, so we know what's going on in their business, and we know the changes that are happening. But there is a certain number or a certain percentage of our returns that we are just doing their tax prep, and we don't know the day-to-day, and we don't understand what's going on in their life because we're just doing the tax prep, and that's ultimately not the best way to go about it. So you got to rely on that information, and a lot of the clients that I brought with me when I came to High Rock, I've been doing for years, so I understand them and I follow them. I know what's going on in their lives, so it makes it really simple.
Yeah.
But there are other clients that I inherited over the last year and a half that I don't know, and so we have to find that out. So it's back and forth, or figuring it out, going through the organizers, talking to people that might know who they are in the firm, so it adds a little bit of complexity to it. for sure.
Is there a communication like strategy that should go into that? Like, are these people that we should be connecting with maybe quarterly, just to even if it's by some automated message or something, where we're doing that check in along the way of, hey, we're in March,
Yeah.
or whatever. Maybe, hey, we're in June. We're halfway through the year, or how's it going? Like that seems
Yeah.
that adding that extra layer of communication, and especially if it's something that you can automate, like it feels
Right.
like it may break down some of that uncertainty barrier.
Right.
Um, but I don't know, and I don't know how effective those types of tools are, or whether they even exist. I think
Well,
I think that's a definitely a big problem.
in today's day and age, I mean, you can automate that and build email campaigns to send that information out. And,
Yeah.
it's just a matter of getting that set up and doing that. I mean, ultimately, what I want to do is get a client on a quarterly cadence and actually talk to them and find out what's going on and help them actually plan what's going on in their life and what the tax events are going to be coming up and help them save on their taxes. I mean, that's,
Of course.
from a tax professional, that's what I like doing. I don't like sitting there putting numbers into the system and then get frustrated by these diagnostics that I can't solve because the system is pulling these obscure things out of the sky. And then you have to call support, spend 3 hours, and still not get an answer on it. So, yeah.
That would be super valuable, I think, obviously, to any tax preparer. And anytime that you're able to connect to your clients, there's a whole lot of value in that.
For sure.
Not just in the relationship building, which is obviously really important, right? And you want that client to know who you are too, but also in exactly what we've been talking about, right? Because you're getting the opportunity to understand what types of things you need to look out for as a tax professional,
right?
And what kinds of advice you can be giving them along the way. So something that I've seen like lots of commentary around are people who don't want to go on extension. Now I feel pretty comfortable in saying like it doesn't really matter, but I'd love to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, you hear a lot of questions that, hey, if I extend, I'm going to get audited. And it's farther from the truth. That is so fiction, and it is a myth. It actually, by extending, it gives you the opportunity for everything that's going to impact your tax return to go into your tax file. You can actually pull a transcript and know exactly what's in there to make sure you're not missing anything. It actually tightens it up and gives you a better picture of what your income is because it's already been thrown in your file. And the way the systems are today, it's very easy to access your own tax account, and it's very easy for us to access your tax account. And one of the great things that the IRS has done in the last year has put this customer portal together, and we can actually send a request for authorization through this portal. Client can go in there and sign it and accept it, and then we can log in through our Tax Pro account and get the information from their account, whether it's payments, income, run transcripts, and things like that, which makes it so much easier for us. Now, it's only for individual accounts. They don't have this for the business accounts yet, but I mean, it's been great progress, and having access to this has been super helpful.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. So you made me think about this. Like, should you just, if you're at this filing deadline, the 3/15 filing deadline, should you just kind of want to go on extension? Do you have to pay any money right now? Like, what is
That's a great question. So when you extend, you're extending the filing, not extending the payment. So your taxes due on the original filing deadline. Now, pass-through entities, partnerships, and S-corps usually don't have tax due, so there aren't a lot of payments that are due at this deadline. Most of that is due come 4/15 in April, but you do want to line that up and start looking at that. Now, some S-corps must file composite returns if they have owners that are out of state, and in those cases, some of those could be due come
415.
On 415, yeah, and be able to. Yeah, no, March 15th, not 415.
Oh, now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you have to file those composites as well, and basically it's you filing the individual portion, so the business owner doesn't have to file another state. So the business is taking care of that for them.
Right.
So based on what comes off
Yeah.
the K1, they estimate your tax is going to be X dollars. The business pays it, and they file that with the state, and that keeps you from having to file another state return with your 1040.
Oh yeah, that's and I knew that composite returns were really valuable to the business owners, but I don't know that I knew all of the detail of how exactly that worked. So yeah, that's great context. What other things do you think would improve the like customer experience between tax professionals and the people that are needing their taxes prepped or planned?
That is a loaded question, because I can come up with 1,000 things that would make it easier, but you know, it's about making it easier and having less friction for the client. You know, making it so that when you send them information, they get it where you're using it. You know, most of the platforms are using email. You know, today I think more people are using text. It might be better if we're using texting for some of those things.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you want to meet the user where they are, and you know, the millennials are texting more and more. I mean,
yeah.
Most of the time you're talking to them, they don't want you to email them. Just go ahead and text me. So if you're setting it that way, it's a lot easier for them because it's right there. You know, it's what I said a while back about invoicing. When you invoice somebody, you want to make it as easy as you can for them to pay. Send them a text and let them use Apple or Google Pay. It's just, you know, the no-brainer. And I would say it's the same when we're looking at anything work-related. Just hit them on that text message. So
yeah, that's a really you made me think about a really interesting topic around this too that I really haven't that much, but it's a topic it's definitely out there, and I know I saw Logan Graff talking about it earlier today, of like this is the first year where he's made sure that all of his billings people are paying in advance.
Right.
And it made me think, like, wait, it's 315. That means that a lot of work has gone into returns. Even if you've extended them, a lot of stuff has probably happened already.
Right.
Like, if you're not billing in advance, is like the week of 322. Is this like a super high billing week, or what? How like what would you advise people to do first, and then like what other things can you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the smart thing to do is to bill in advance. I mean, we do that with our accounting services. You know, we bill on the first of the month for the month coming up, and on the tax returns, you know, we have a combination of an annual billing and a monthly billing. So those that are on monthly are getting billed on the first of every month for their portion of that. Yeah. And we set those up usually to run January through December. So during the year of the return, so like right now, clients are paying for their 2024 return if they're paying monthly. So we get to January, that return for that year is done and paid for. Now, when we are billing on an annual basis, we are billing for the return we are currently doing. So I would have billed a client X dollars for their 2023 tax return, and they would have gotten a bill come March 1st to pay it.
Yeah, nice. One other question that's come to my mind as we've been talking about this in general is, if you're not doing clients' books, so they're either doing it themselves or they have a bookkeeper that's for whatever reason isn't you. Are there like the best systems to like? Do you try to segregate? Like, do you want to be I'm only going to do this if you're using Xero, or like like I guess I've never really thought about the interplay between the accounting software and the reports that you get out of it, and
Yeah.
the like tax software, or one thing that I thought about as we were talking about this was like, wouldn't it be nice if the tax software and the accounting software were just like integrated and a happy little family where all of that data that you need for a business return is kind of already just kind of imported
Right.
instead of some like intervention where you have to go in circles to get the data, clear the data, make sure it's all clean, do all of this stuff where you're going to have to do a lot of work around it. Like, I know that's a bunch of questions, so let's start first. So, like, accounting systems, like, does it matter who you use?
So if you're asking me what to use, I'm going to say go blue and go Xero. I mean, it's so much easier for me to do what I need to do with it. And you know, in my years working with smaller businesses, you show them Xero, they're like, "Oh wow, that looks so super easy. How do we switch?" But you know, it honestly, if you're a business, you got to have organized books, and it doesn't. I don't want to say it doesn't matter what you're using, but you use something. Now,
it doesn't matter as long as it's clean.
Clean, and if it's not clean, consistent. If you're going to be wrong, be consistent.
Yeah, okay.
So,
that makes sense.
You know, my tax experience started very late in the 90s.
Okay.
And I was mostly helping people.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time
high
ago.
school?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Shh. I was 12. I mean, come on. I was 12.
You're doing taxes at 12. All right, I get it.
Yes.
All right, sorry.
So, so I was started out doing it as a favor, you know, and I started learning how to do it. And, you know, I started my manufacturing business, my nutraceutical business in 2003. And at that time, I had the partner in that he was our sales guy, and typical sales guy, you know, hey, you want to do some taxes this year? I can bring you all kinds of clients. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. We can make some money here. And he started bringing people in. It's like, yeah, we're not doing that. You know, he was bringing in. He was a server at Universal, and he was bringing his coworkers, and it's like, yeah, I can't do that. They wanted to deduct mileage. I'm like, mileage for what? Well, so I can get to my hotel to work and be a server. Yeah, no, can't do that. So they're like, well, we'll just go back to Jose. And you go back to Jose. That was great. 6 months later, Jose was arrested.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I was, so I that's where I cut my teeth on things like that. And that's where I learned the right and from wrong. And, you know, it was a few years after that, I just started the digital CPA, and it was in a number of networking groups. And in one of these groups was a general manager to a car dealer group. And he was having this vendor day. I said, hey, what if I come in and did tax returns for your employees? And I thought that was a good idea. Yeah. I made like $300. And people were like, yeah, can I deduct my dead boyfriend? Can I claim him as a deduction? I'm like, yeah, no, you can't do that. And, you know, there's things like that. Yeah. And so...
You know what you needed, Jay?
What was that?
You needed like a nice little client system, right? To be able to weed people out from the beginning. You needed, you needed like an onboarding tool.
Well, I figured that out. So...
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, when you start out, you're doing returns cheap. You don't know what a lot of people do it really cheap. And...
Yeah.
You know, over the few years after that, the price doubled and tripled. And as I was scaling it and doing them for more money, I was getting better clientele. But those that weren't running books were coming in, and I was able to take that information And, the biggest thing I heard back then was, well, I got no money in my bank account. There's no way I have profit, And it's like, well, cash doesn't always equal profit. So let's look at that. And you look at it, and like half of the withdrawals are to themselves.
No.
And you're like, well, okay, what would you classify this as? And they're like, oh, that's payroll. Okay, where are your payroll filings? Where's your W-2? Oh, we didn't do that, but that's an expense. I said, actually, that is not. And
That's not how it works.
That was not payroll. And so here's actually your profit. And you're like, oh, we didn't know that. And, people we were seeing before allowed us to do that. It's like, well, that's not the way it works. And by educating at that point, I was able to take those clients that were coming in with, the proverbial shoebox or the Excel file or the check stubs.
Yeah, sure.
And be able to put them on zero way back when in 2012 and 13. And, we could show them the value of what we can do. And basically we paid for ourselves. We paid for the bookkeeping that we were doing and our tax return with the money we were able to save them by giving them valuable intel.
Well, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing for sure. Yep. No, Christy's right. Use something and keep it up to date. That's an important thing. And
Most
then, like you said, Jay, keep it consistent. Don't change it from one year to the next.
Yep.
Because then you lose a lot of the understanding of the changes that you need to make.
And that's where rules come into play in Xero and in QuickBooks. Use those rules.
Yeah, sure.
At least if they're wrong, they're consistent. They're easy to fix.
Yes, right, absolutely. Right. And so one other question that I asked that we didn't touch on yet, right, is do accounting systems and tax software, do they do much connecting, or are they pretty not very good at that right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some systems that do connect, and if you're using the Thomson Reuters system, you use their write-up system, you can move it from your GL into the engagement system into the tax return, and those will do that. If you use some of the Intuit systems, they will do that as well. Now, funny you should ask. I was on a call today with two of the founders of Tally4, which is a tool that I love because I can then connect that to Xero, pull my trial balance in, and then push my tax details into the tax software. And that is exactly what you're talking about there.
Yeah.
And
what a perfect idea to fix the problem. Love that.
So, you think about
softwares out there that do that thing.
Right, but you think about the amount of time it takes to do the data entry into a tax return. You're talking 30 minutes to an hour. And undoubtedly, you have a transposition somewhere, or you have a miskey, and it's always open to data entry errors. By using the platform to pull the data through, all you got to do is map it, and then you can review it and then send it over. The beautiful part of this, you do it the first time, it takes 20 to 30 minutes to set it up. The next year, you're just mapping the changes.
Yeah, that's lovely.
5 minutes from trial balance to tax return.
Definitely exists.
And then you're reviewing it instead of doing data entry and finding other ways to possibly save your client money versus doing data entry.
Yeah, right. You're doing more of the planning, more of the true value add stuff, right? The preparation of the tax return, a lot of that is commoditized, right? You're just doing it. Some systems do connect loose, as it's true, definitely. And so being able to extract yourself from that part of the process, which can take a lot of time if you're doing it manually, right? Because then you have to double check it and you have to make sure that it's being done correctly. There's a lot of stuff that goes into making sure all of that's right. And so being able to skip that part does give you so much more time to do the better stuff, and then do more of it too, because you're not spending your time doing those other things. I feel like I could ask tax-related questions for all day.
Well, April 15th is coming up. We can tee that up that week too. So let's hold back some if you need to. Yeah,
that's true. Maybe I should. What other what other user experience things have we not touched on currently that would be worth touching on now before April 15th?
Yeah. Honestly, making it easier to communicate with the client and respond back.
Yeah.
That is ultimately the best thing we can do from a client experience. You know,
Right.
meeting them where they are, using text tools. Like even the chat within the tools we're using, we might not be capturing their phone numbers. Maybe you start capturing the phone number so they can get it on their phone and be able to do it
Yeah,
where
right.
they're at. So those are things that I would look at. One thing we really didn't talk about was the pre-populated organizers. So
Yeah.
I think those are really important to send to your clients because it sets the expectation. This is what you filed last year or what you submitted last year. We're expecting at least this, or if something changed, let us know that you no longer have that job or you changed your mortgage, so we know not to expect it. But
Yeah.
at some point in time, I had a client that came back to me. It was about 9 months after we filed, and he's like, "Hey, the IRS just changed my taxes, and look at this." And I'm like, "Well, that's because you never sent me your fidelity statement." And I read a transcript, and they had a fidelity statement there, and the letter showed they pulled it out, and they took the proceeds of it, and there was no cost reported on it, so they took the whole thing and put it in as a capital gain. I'm like, okay, here's what we got to do. So we went back, we pulled the statement, and we knew what the cost was. We were able to go and get that fixed. But,
Right.
people they're inundated in January with these things. And if you don't know what you're
Right.
looking for, sometimes it goes in the circular file or it goes in the file cabinet. You never know. So it's important to watch all that stuff. And that's where, if you use that pre-populated organizer, you're going to see that, oh, I forgot my fidelity statement, so let me get that to you. And so, it's important to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so obviously I think the big takeaway there is twofold. The first one is like communicate. Communicate a lot, communicate regularly. And the second one is be clear, both with your organizers and your follow-ups, right?
Yep.
Of these are the things that we need from you. Here's the reason why. And those are really both just two different layers of communication, right?
For sure.
So it sounds like us as tax professionals, we need to make sure that we're communicating really well.
Yes, definitely.
That reminds me of the biggest thing that has always been a sticking point or something that I think is funny, because most people if they see that you're a CPA, they just assume you do taxes. And I don't know why that's the case, because there are loads and loads and loads and loads of CPAs that do not do taxes, and I'm one of them. And so it is like very, it's always a trip to hear like people's thoughts about that. Like why do you think that's what a CPA does? Like, what would be the reason for that?
Right.
But yeah, I have thankfully I nipped a lot of those things in the bud early of like, that's definitely not what I do. Please don't ask me about this.
Right.
But people always think you're going to be busy this time of year, which is kind of nice, right? They leave you alone a little bit. You got a little bit of extra free time from responding to, whatever shenanigans might be going on. But yeah, no, tax is never something that I would ever say that I would. I don't even think I would be good at it even now, right? Even though I've got a lot of exposure to tax stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just you have to have had time and dedicated time to learning about what the rules are and understanding what the rules are, even if you're a CPA, because
they change constantly.
Yeah, there's so much complexity. There's so much change. There's so much nuance too, because you could have two very, very, very similar sets of facts, but just one small little edit, and all of a sudden the result is completely different. So
true.
So
we've got a question. What do you do with clients that refuse to communicate? So,
oh man, that's a great question.
What I did in the past, I used a tool that would repeat the messages and send them back out until there was a response. And
Yeah, just
I set up an automation,
communication.
and basically I drove them back to a web page. When they hit that web page, it would stop the automation, and they would communicate through that web page. So until they did, we stayed in front of
Yeah,
them.
we'll keep going.
And
Yeah.
that, like I said, that's part of the problem. Come October 15th, you got to get those signatures. You got to sign it now, or else it's going to be late, and then you're going to really be paying penalties. So
Right. Yeah, and so you'd start what now with starting to starting with that communication exchange
For
maybe
sure.
even a month ago, 2 months ago.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And so just being consistent. And I do think I mentioned this before too, of like highlighting the reason why we need this because of X, and that's why it's important. Can really be helpful in attempting to to make progress. That doesn't always work, of course.
Most definitely.
Some people are busy for all kinds of different reasons too. So trying is all you can do.
That's all you can do.
That's the best
Just
place
try
to
to
start.
stay in front of it and be open, honest, and concise, and polite.
Yeah,
I mean,
wonderful.
yeah.
Right, and so it's all it's kind of funny. Those things are all like bedside manner,
Yeah.
right? So when you think about a doctor, you think about the bedside manner of the doctor, and so what you really want is you want your clients to end that year, end that filing season with you, feeling like they had really really great care, and so that is the type of situation that you definitely want to start to build. That's what you would love for your going to the tax doctor situation to be one that has positive associations with it and not negative ones.
For sure.
And so I think we've talked about a lot of things that can help with that for sure.
For sure.
So what's going on? What's going on next week?
Next week. Oh, let's not get into that yet. I mean, is it time for that?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it is actually. So today was Abby's start of spring break. So Sunday we're heading over to St. Augustine to spend a couple days over there, over near where she is planning to go to college. So I'm going to finally go see the campus and do a little peeking over there. And we're expecting some rain, but still hoping to hit the beach a little bit and get some sun. So yeah.
That'll be nice. I look out the window because it was raining here just a little while ago, but it looks like it stopped. So so hopefully that rain is gone. And we had some storms move through here yesterday too. But that's exciting. Spring break plans, going to the beach. That's fun stuff.
This is our first time, and we do something every year. But the last 5 years, we've always gone north and got into the cold. And Abby's like, I want to do something in the sun. Yeah. Yeah,
that's fun. My wife and I went recently to get a passport for our little one, and we don't have it yet, but we definitely want to we definitely want to go somewhere sometime soon.
Yeah.
So doing something, and probably something nearer toward a beach. That sounds like great fun.
Keep in mind those minor passports only last 5 years.
That's okay. We talked about it. We figure we're going to do our best to get good use out of them. For those 5 years, we'll do as much as we can. We got places to go and places to see. I love traveling. I'm a big fan of traveling and getting out and seeing the world. So
we were caught by that,
share that with our daughter.
a year ago, Labor Day. We were going to go somewhere. We were going to go to Canada to see some friends, and we realized that Abby's passport had expired.
Oh no!
Yeah. Yeah. So
bummer.
Now
that'll be a fun thing to watch out for.
Right. So now she's of age, and it's 10 years, and it's on her now because she's going to be 18 come August. So yeah. So
how funny! How
sure.
funny! What other do we expect any tax updates this week, or
I'm not expecting anything. At this point I wouldn't expect it. I think they'll probably try attaching it next year. Maybe do it later in the year. But yeah.
Well, that if it happens, or if anything happens, or if TikTok gets banned completely, we'll be here to talk about it next week. Even though you're on vacation.
I'll be back I'll be back
for
Friday next week. So yeah, we'll be
there
good.
We go.
Yeah.
Exciting.
All
So
recharged
any other things
and ready
that you
to
want to
go.
talk about today, Jay?
We've covered everything on my list, so I think we hit it. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you for watching the video. And this was On the Rocks. I'm Chris. That's Jay. We'll be back next week. See you then.
See y'all. Thanks for your comments this week.